Financial disclaimer. The information provided in this stream is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional financial or investment advice. We are not licensed financial advisors, and the content presented here is based on our personal opinions and experiences. Investing in stocks and other financial instruments involves risk, including the potential loss of capital. Any investment decisions you make are solely your own responsibility, and you should conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment choices. The content we share on this stream may not be accurate, complete, or up to date. Market conditions and financial regulations can change rapidly, and we cannot guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information presented. We do not endorse or promote any specific stocks, companies, or investment strategies. Any actions you take based on the content of this stream are at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses or damages that may occur as a result. Always remember that past performance is not indicative of future results, and no investment is guaranteed to be profitable. Make informed decisions and consider your risk tolerance before investing any funds. By accessing and using this stream, you acknowledge and agree that we are not responsible for any investment decisions you make as a result of the content presented. You are encouraged to seek advice from qualified financial professionals for personalized guidance. Please invest responsibly and only with money you can afford to lose.
Hey man, just found the next guaranteed multi-bagger.
Hey man, you found another one? What is it this time?
Come check this out.
Okay, next please. How can I help you, young man?
We want to go all in on ME. The test showed that I'm 0.06% elephant, and we need to save the company right now to get some answers.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check and it's gone.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Laughing Stock. How are you, Dane?
Good. How you doing?
Yeah, good. We were a bit busy last weekend, so it's good to be back. And a lot of things has been going on since the last stream, I think.
Yeah, I sadly couldn't even do the stream last week, and I had my best week of the year and one of the best weeks I've ever had. And then all the excitement's gone this week.
Yeah, exactly. It was like high up and higher down straight after. But I will say one thing. I will be a bit careful with the glasses moving forward because I didn't realize the real power it could have, you know. Yeah,
I needed you to put them on this week.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I dare because you saw what happened the next day. It was chaos, complete chaos.
Yeah, and then value. I literally had posted yesterday about GER being up, and I was like, oh, I'll check that at pre-market. I got busy, never looked at it, and then the first time I looked at it, it was up like 30%. I was like, oh, come on. Yeah. I was gonna get it in pre-market, and I think it was only up like, I don't know, like half of what it was. I would have caught half that move at least.
Yeah,
totally missed it.
That was a good move, and Value posted in the Discord his positions and stuff like that. So he seemed to have I know you're here, Value, so you seem to have a good week. So congrats on the trades. That was strong. I've had a pretty frustrating week myself. I had some gains. We will talk about everything, right? But I feel like I should have done much better this week, and I just did some mistakes, and I got stopped out on a lot of things, so disappointing.
Yeah, I just got stopped out on some stuff, and I've been playing around. I've been talking to you about doing like an end of day type buy on some things, and I had mixed results with it, and I don't know. In the long run, I think it would be better to go in and focus on trying to get in at bases, which is what my next thing I'm testing is. And I know I should probably stop testing these things because I should just stick with just the swing trades because they do obviously work, or deep value, either one. But it's just one other thing that it's not. I guess it's not swing trading. It's just trying to cheat a little bit, which is what do you call it? Just to capture more of the move, essentially. But
yeah,
it's I'm assuming my hit rate will be worse, but the returns will be higher. So I guess just statistically and mathematically, you gotta figure that out to where
Yeah.
it breaks even.
Yes. And I
Value
think
says some losers, some winners. He's got loafers. He's got some shoes he lost. He got rid of the shoes apparently. Overall, pretty happy with this week.
yeah.
But
Nice.
yeah, my week before killed it, and then this week I'm down like 2.7%. But
Yeah.
of course, I didn't get to stream last week. Last week was an amazing week. I'm up 24% year to date. So
That's
last
very
week
good.
was literally like a 25% or 24% gain. It was a
Yeah.
crazy week for me.
And
So overall, I mean, I'm up now 52.5% for since I've been since we switched to the swing trading style. So
yeah,
not quite a year yet.
that's amazing already, I think. And it just also shows like that was literally 1 week for you, right? And it was
Yeah.
just like everything was going your way. And USEG even, which was your biggest position, we will show USEG soon, but it just seems like everything worked exactly like you hoped for.
Yeah, I got lucky with the pop on USEG, and I ended up actually putting my stop loss up. I didn't even mean to put it up where I did. Or I guess I did, but like I probably shouldn't have in hindsight, just in case. But either way, got stopped out, and because the way USEG worked out with the news, that wasn't my thesis. So I was like, you know what? I don't think it's gonna hold this whole pop. I think it'll come right back down. So I just took the gains. I treated it more like a trade. Even though I had been in it for obviously a few months or a month or whatever it's been, I don't remember how long. But and then earlier in the week, I had caught like a couple of quantum names. I had one really good day on like Tuesday, and then the USEG pop. So like the week went from good to like amazing, and
Yeah.
then of course this week got stopped on some stuff. So I guess I shouldn't kick myself too much because you're not going to have multiple weeks or not often like that. So
Yeah, true.
just have to take it for what it is.
Yeah. No, that was very good. And a confirmation, because we have been in a positive market for a little bit now, at least after 2025 being pretty red, but now it has turned up a little bit. And we can go into to the markets a bit later, but they seem to struggle a little bit to break the new highs still. And we just talked before the stream, like there's a lot of uncertainty. And the last 3 days, if you look at the volume on the SPX, it's pretty high on the sell side. So let's see this coming week how it goes. But yeah, it just seems a little bit tough for it to break into new high ground with everything that is going on right now. So but stuff are still working though. So yeah.
Yeah, on my market strength, things have pulled back slightly, but it's still above where I keep watching it to see where my numbers land and kind of what's considered like a strong market versus like a weaker market based on the metrics that I've been building up. And as of now, even though it's weakened, it's still in my mind considered kind of bullish where you could be taking in swing trades are working. And to be honest, most of the names I took ended up breaking out. I just was unlucky in my timing this week, which happens. It's not like I'm not like kicking myself because like I necessarily did too much wrong. I did chase a few names a little bit. I probably got in a little bit higher than I should have, and maybe I would have been able to stay into them longer. But I mean, there's not much I can do on it, and I just have to take these weeks. But being down 2.5%, it just sucks. But it's in the long run, it's part of the way it works.
Yeah, I think I was down 3% this week. And I had a good week the previous, but not anywhere near close to what you did. But um, yeah, need to just continue to work still on the entry points, like you said. Maybe try to get them a little bit closer down in the base, and continue to work on the timing, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, like just so like I said, some of the stupid names, like some of the things I didn't get into, it sucks because they ended up having really good. So like I called it right, I just got stopped out.
Yeah,
Could support timing, and
yeah,
then like I said, GUR was like a simple EP play. You know, obvious earnings. It was after hours that the news came out. There's plenty of time to get in pre-market, and I figured it was going to pop. And of course, it took right off, and then it was just me not paying attention. I should have checked it. But the other thing too is like there's certain days, just the way work is and stuff. I don't have an opportunity really to check.
no.
And I'm doing it on my phone some days, which is it sucks.
It's
So
hard.
it is what it is.
I assume it's hard, very hard for you now in this time when you are about to film the next Jurassic Park at your work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
But and so far there's nothing in the egg, so
Yeah.
that part was disappointing. But whatever, it's all good.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
but
Let's jump into the markets here. I have the S&P 500 graph here. And you can just see like it's been going sideways for quite a bit now. But then it wanted to go up and has turned down a little bit more bearish. And this was the volume I talked about that we got on Friday, which is well above the average volume. But yeah, well, I all in all, it didn't move much this entire week, I think.
yeah, and I mean that was it was kind of like stronger volume there on that sell, yet we didn't really break through anything. So I mean, there's obviously a lot of strength right there. I think that support line's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I just think because of kind of like you were saying on the macro environment, just because we don't know what's going to happen, that it's going to bounce sideways for a while.
Yeah, and I've registered that a lot of the stocks that are outperforming right now also they don't necessarily have follow through volume. It goes up 3, 4, 5% on somewhat low volume, a lot of them, at least from what I saw in my scans.
Mm-hmm.
So people are a bit more careful, I think, again. Let's see how it goes. What are the stocks that you are currently in?
Well, I got stopped out of all my stuff on Friday, so
Okay.
but later on, I did take some names because, like I said, I'm going to try seeing if I can get into some base on some names. So the three that I'm in right now, I took 5% position, which is maybe a little high just because I'm kind of testing things, but they are close and they look good in terms of like breakouts. So I was okay with taking a 5% position. First ticker is SPRO. Which if you look at the chart, I mean, you can clearly see it looks like it's in that consolidation phase and possibly able to break out. So
and pretty tight candles in this week actually.
yeah. So it's one of those things where and it's kind of riding that moving average right now. So the goal is to just look for the typical signs of the breakout, but it's in the vein of trying to get in before that next big breakout. Another one's QBT, which I did get stopped on QBT, but QUBT. But I also thought, towards the end of the day that what do you call it? It still looks to me like it's in a good base. So it's one of those things that I know it's bouncing around and whatnot, but I like to hear. I still think it can break out from here, and I caught the last breakout on this one, so why not go for 2?
Yeah, you got in. That was one of the stocks you owned the previous week, right?
Yeah, that was one of my big winners the previous week. That because I think the one day it was like a 10% or 12% gain, and then USEG was like another 12% on its own.
Yeah,
because I mean, part of that was from the first 10% was also USEG because USEG was already up to like $1.40 or something. So I mean, that had already given me like a percent on the first day. That was so big.
yeah.
But I just got lucky and I took that. I took like OUST, Oslo, or I can't remember if it was Oslo, or Oklo. That's what it is.
Yeah, the nuclear one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think there was another ticker too. I had like 4 of them that that all of them were just really strong days.
You had the Sportman Warehouse. Is that
Oh
the
yeah,
name?
yeah, SPWH. Yep.
Yeah.
Which actually that one that ran for such a long time.
Yeah.
And then the other one I took that I wish I would have stayed in was QNTM. It's a quantum biofarm.
QMTM.
QNTM. It looks similar to
Yeah.
Sportsman Warehouse.
Okay.
It's just been rising,
Yeah.
and I got out of it way too early.
Yeah. The day for that was 12th of June, Thursday. That's a good setup there.
Yeah, I sold out on that on day 3 of that breakout, and now I'm like, oh
Yeah.
god, like that one I so that's what I'm saying. So it's not like breakouts aren't working, and it's not like I'm not picking good names. This week I'm just depressed because coming off such a good week, it just I was like, all right, let's do this, let's keep it going, and then this week just disappointment after disappointment. So it's
Yeah.
I played it wrong, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then the other one I'm in right now is QNCCF. So it's a foreign company, obviously, but once again, I just thought the breakout chart looked like we were in a base.
Yeah. And you want to get in close to the, or well before the actual breakout out happens, right?
Yeah, and you'll see that each of those charts are they're definitely different. Like they're in different parts and they don't look all the same, but they are all in that consolidation phase. They're all, the candles are shrinking, the volume's down. It's literally like what Minervini's basically saying that you should be looking for. And I know Minervini's goal is always to get in like right as that base starts to break out. So kind of what I'm screening for, is stuff that's like in a tight moving average, previously, broke out already once, maybe even twice, depending on if it's like a 1 month or a 3 month time period. And then, just keep the stop loss on and we'll see if I can catch these at a little bit lower of a spot. What I did is part of the reason I took the 5% position as opposed to like a 10%, because usually when I do breakouts, I try and take 10% positions, which I know is aggressive, but that's the whole point of the portfolio. But the reason is that way I can keep my stop loss pretty large. So right now my stop loss on these would be at 10%. So if I do lose, that's only 1% loss, which I know is high, but I figure if one of these catches like a full breakout, it'll cover the other ones. So probably next week, what I'll do is I'm going to make a list of ones that, I think look good and I will take. I'm not going to actually take them. I'm just going to basically put it on paper as if I would.
Yeah.
And then just kind of watch to see what my hit rate would be and what my return would be.
Yeah.
Because-
one in the quantum names another one in the quantum names that I saw yesterday actually was LAES. Because it had a pop up 6.5% on Friday on some. It was pretty normal volume, but I think if that one I draw a line here at 448. So another one that you can possibly get before the actual breakout here. And like you said, they all look the same, down on low volume, and the candles are getting a bit tight. It's funny because if you look through the groups here, right, they all seem very identical.
Yeah, which I mean, they're all in that quantum market, and they do tend to move together. So it's not like I need to be in too many names,
No.
Like you can just be in a few names, and if you catch them right, they'll all kind of work out together.
Yeah. I went through. I have these two lists here, which I have created to try to group stocks together, and it's actually very funny how you can pull up charts and you see the group. They are just like identical, almost all of them.
Yeah, I think there's so much passive investing these days that it's just how the money flows into these things.
Yeah. So it's like these are big purchase, like big buyers are kind of controlling these groups, so just another confirmation that you should look for institutional ownership in the swing trades you are in also.
Right.
Because I don't know how many tickers I have in this list, but it's a lot. And when you then just, because you don't need to look at charts very long before you are not interested, or you put them on another watch list maybe. And when you just scroll like quickly through them, they all look the same. You notice it very clearly when you have grouped them together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's why in terms of me trying to pick these out, like, my screener, when I look, it probably sent me, like 15 or 20 different stocks that look like they're kind of in bases. But I only took a few of them because, even though it kind of has what I want, there's like certain charts that just look better than others. It has even more. And I'm just trying to increase the likelihood of the breakout. So if you're going to look at some of these charts, you want to be kind of particular, because if I can choose 15 names, I have to be able to pick the top 5, which, like we said, it's all the same things: following moving averages, recent breakout, tight volume, tight candles. And usually, like, it's kind of the same names. You see the same names like that tend to just get like that, just break out. Like, there's certain names that like pop up. Like when I took QBT the first time, it wasn't normally one I would take because it was a little bit lower than where I would have wanted it. But it's just one of those names that when you start to see people flood into it, it just takes off. So
yeah, it's gonna happen sooner or later. With these quantum stocks, you just want to be in one when they start to move up again, because. And also the same, I was gonna mention it earlier when you talked about GRRR. Because how you said you should have gone in the pre-market, even if it's up 12% or whatever it was at that time. You kind of know it's going to go higher, right? Because this is one of those names that you have seen before, what it can do on a single day.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a strong stock, and then on top of that too, I mean, this was an EP play, so
Yeah.
it almost needs to be up 10%, from everything, like when I read like what Q says and all that. You really want it to be up a significant amount, because if it's not, it doesn't really show enough strength in terms of like an earnings or revenue surprise.
Yeah.
So if you're doing an EP like this, it's really important to do that. So the other, if I'm going to play EPs, what I should really be doing is right after the market closes, just be checking around to see if anyone has any surprise earnings, which isn't really that hard to do, but you can get in pretty quick on these names. So
Yeah. Well, I got stopped on LASR. The company is called Enlight. I think you took this one as well, right?
At a point, yes, I have.
Yeah.
I think I may have taken it last week. I don't remember.
This was a gain for me because I raised the stop loss. It kind of broke down on Wednesday and Friday, so I wish maybe I had taken the signal on Wednesday and sold out, but I didn't do that. But I let it go to my stop loss, which gave me a little bit of gain at least. But I've been holding this for quite some time, actually, more than 3 days. I've also been trying to expand a little bit on the holding period and just look a bit for other strategies as well, because I was in which this one I raised. This one is pace, and I raised the stop loss to break even here. And I got stopped out here, and just look at how it has gone since then, And Cecil was another one that I sold out after. I sold out too quickly, This has just gone up ever since. SCZL. And I was like, I tried to adjust a little bit to that, because I saw a lot of the tickers that I sold out of, they just kept going. So I've been trying to adjust a little bit, and maybe you should start to sell like half a position or a third, and keep the remaining part, just leave it going, and then use the moving averages to sell out completely. It's a little bit painful, like you also said, with your timing, and you get stopped out, and then you see you were actually right, it was just the timing. which happens a lot when you do swing trading, of course. But it's just painful to see they go up 60%, and all I got was like 10%. You know.
Yeah, one lesson I learned is we were talking about kind of how Minervini has the 4 different stages, and it's not just him, but the 4 different stages of a stock. You know, there's the like the base forms, there's the rise in the stock, there's like a peak, and then there's the where it returns back down.
Yeah.
And looking back, last year when I was tracking everything and doing all my information, I found that it looked like returns that came back were best if you just took it at 3 days. And I consistently found that. But at the same time, too, looking back, we were at the peak of the market, which makes me think that now that I would say we're in more of a phase 2 of the market, you might want to do longer holds. So I actually think this is where when Qualamaji said that he would sell half or a third of his position and keep the rest of it to sell below the 10-day moving average, I actually think that makes sense in this market. So when you're in a market where we're in part 2, or what I would consider, so if you pull up like the NASDAQ or S&P and you just look at where we are, and I guess you could start to argue we're more at a peak now. But next time I get into one where the whole market's moving up, because these things can extend and run for a while, I probably am going to start to take on the strategy of doing that, where when you have that big return in terms of the whole index, to keep some stuff in for longer periods of time, because you can capture some huge moves. And there's a bunch of names I've been in that I didn't capture the huge move because I sold out after 3 days, which, don't get me wrong, for a ton of stocks, that still is going to give you a great return. And it's still a viable strategy. But missing some of these moves, it's kind of like,
it's not what you should do. You should do the opposite,
if
right?
you see it working, it's like one of those things that like you have to take it, seriously. And I remember just thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe that worked when Qualamaji was training in those videos, and yes, it did. And now I think now I'm starting to see it like, okay, that has to do more with the phase of the market where you're going to see that strategy work versus just taking a swing trade for a few days or a week and then getting out. So
I agree, and that's what I've been looking at a little bit lately, which is why you have seen me keep stocks. I haven't sold part of the positions yet. I've just stuck with the entire position. But I also know that Minervini talks about how you should sell 50%, because mentally you will always be like, if it starts to drop after you have sold 50%, you will be glad that you did it and say like, I did the right thing, and then if it keeps going, you will say the same thing. I'm happy I didn't sold more because it keeps going up. So mentally 50-50 is a point he is emphasizing, that you can sell 50% of the position in a scenario like that. I think Qualamaji operate with 1/3 to 50%, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and that's why I remember when I was telling you the first time I read that one book, I was wondering why the first half of the book was literally just about your mental attitude going into this.
Yeah.
And then after you do it for a little bit, you just realize how important that is, and how to kind of just set some goals and set some ways that you can take winners and kind of keep your confidence up, because it only takes, like I said, I was literally up like almost 25% or whatever it was in a week. And then this last week being down 2.5%, I'm like disappointed with myself. And like, that's such an irrational feeling to even have. But at the same time, it happens, and there's like nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. No, so I think this is a point that is important now in this environment, and there's a lot of examples. AIVA is another one. We have talked about that 100 times now, but it's such a great. It did fall on Friday, but if you took this down here and you held for 3 days, you would be stopped out at 11, and now it's at 25, just a short time after, actually. So. You can find a lot of examples like this now, so it's definitely worth checking out. Another one I'm still in it is PGY. I have raised the stop to break even here, and once again this seems to just claw, you know, slowly upwards. So I'm gonna hold it until I'm willing to get break even on it, you know, because I think this can continue to move upwards. But saying that, it touched this point where it had showed some resistance in the past, and then it pulled back a little bit. So I'm watching it, you know. But
Right.
it's so far it's been a good performer. I tried to take a DK, and like you said this week, I was right on it, but my timing got me stopped out. But it did move up, you know. I got stopped out on this day on that was, I guess, last week, Thursday. Hold on. Yeah, must have been this here, and then, you know, the week after on Monday, it went up almost 10%. So that was a bit annoying. I can't even remember now, like 2 weeks ago, all the stuff I was in. I got stopped on Porch. That didn't work out. It turned back on me. FTK broke down. Did you see that?
Yeah, I got stopped on FTK and FTEK.
Yeah. Another one was you were in Dan, were you not?
Too.
MVST was the same. It had an ugly week. I was up a little bit on it the first day I took it, and then it just turned down. AMPX dropped back, you know.
Right.
So there was a lot of this action going on, I think, this week. I added a playboy again to my watch list, Dane, and maybe when talk about like stuff being in a base and want to get in before a breakout, maybe this will fit some of the stuff that you are looking for there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then you know, I figure if I'm in a base and I keep going back and forth, I want my stop loss to be because even at 5%, maybe I should be doing a 5% stop loss.
Yeah.
So that'll be was that a 0.5%?
Because you said you have.
But
you said you are currently using 10.
Well, just in my head, I had, like I said, you know, I mean, I did this on Friday, so it's not like I've locked into anything. You know, I have to reset it on Monday.
Yeah.
But you know, if I did 5% and I'm already in the base, that might be fair. That might be high enough because honestly, if you go 5% below the base, like, I mean, depending on the stock, obviously, and what your ADR is, you know, some maybe 5% is not that crazy depending on the stock. But you know, if it does go 5% down already from the base, like that's a pretty big decline that might start to signal either you're way too early in the base or that it's going to break down, not break out.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do 5% as my stop loss,
Yeah.
and then see how that works, see what my hit rate is. That's why I said it's like important to kind of track these things. And actually what I started doing is I started recording all the stocks that break out each day and putting them into a list. So then that way I have at least the past 2 weeks of breakouts from each day. And if I have any questions or I want to backtrack or test anything, I can go back quickly on stock charts and just look at each day, what happened since, you know, over the past, you know, so it's kind of a good revolving way of just keeping track of what's going on in the markets.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll do 5%. That's still
Yeah, I
half.
think that makes a lot of sense. Like you don't want to participate in a stock breaking down in the base, you know. That then you would want to jump ship very early.
Right.
And you can always take it again if it starts to come up again. But no, I agree with the 5% there.
Yeah, because I mean that means for, you know, every 5 stocks, if I get just like, you know, 2 above 10%, you know, that would be positive. You know, you could have 3 down 5%, and you could have, if you had 2 at 10%, you'd be up. So
and I don't think that's you know, the entire point to be earlier in the base is you can easily add another 10% on your usual breakout gain by being a bit earlier, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm capturing a breakout, I mean, from the base, it should be like a 20, 30, or even
Yeah.
higher percent return.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to be as statistically conservative as possible.
Yeah.
But we'll see, because that's the other thing too. Like maybe my hit rate's terrible. Is it, is it 1 in 10? Because if it's 1 in 10, then obviously that's not going to work out. If it is, 2 out of 5, that would work out. So
Yeah. I've
and
seen
that's not a great hit rate. That's the other thing too. I mean, 40%. I mean, actually, that's not that bad. But
no,
if it was 30%,
you know, people do this with a 30% hit rate too, and are very successful.
yeah, no, you just have to play around with the numbers a little bit more. But even at 30% with the 5s stopped, it's still not terrible.
Yeah.
That would mean, for every 3 that I'm down, I have to have 1 that's a 15% winner to balance it.
Which is very possible here.
Yeah, that's not implausible. And that's a 25%. So that's even lower for a hit rate. So maybe I
But
should be
you are
thinking of it
talking
like that.
about a little bit of a different holding period with this strategy in general as well, right?
Yeah, and then on top of it too, if I sold half the position, if I catch like an Ava or a any of these names that have ran for a while, obviously the return on that would be much higher. So
Yeah.
and sometimes, if you have capital held up in something that's just going up, it's not a bad thing, because then you're not doing something stupid with that money, while you're like hoping there's breakouts that occur. I mean, sometimes that can bite you too, because there's a crazy day where every breakout works and you can't buy enough.
No.
But those don't come all that often.
I pulled off Netflix here, Dan, just to. I've seen David Ryan talk about this a lot. If you look at this, it's kind of like a W, right? And the second downturn here goes a little bit even lower than the first one, and then it comes right back. And this is the graph with the market. So this happened in the same period as the market was down. So that shows strength in this particular stock, you know. But then he says, like, just try to draw a horizontal line where, the majority of the base is beneath it. So in this case, you would pull the line here, and you would try to take it on this day, the 22nd of April, on this breakout, instead of, let's say, what we have maybe typically seen up here, and you take it on this day instead, 24th of April. Now this is a stock with a lower ADR, so that gain is only 6.5%, but still, this is the point, right?
Yeah, no, it's a good example of kind of the same idea. So
yeah. So to get in, and this is like a lot of the professionals are using this strategy, and he's saying all the time, just draw the line, make it simple. Everything over it is good, everything under it is not, and just try. But this will also fail many times, of course. But yeah, definitely worth trying to get in a bit earlier.
yeah, I mean, this is the whole point of sticking with strong stocks. Like, even if you're in really big stocks like Netflix or something like that, these are strong names, so they're going to have pullbacks, and it's one area that if you're consistent with, you'll be able to catch those as they show that they're coming back into strength. Because the only other way to do these is probably buy the dip, and buying the dip's great unless the dip continues.
Which happens.
Yeah, I mean, remember Ackman? He bought Netflix. He couldn't have timed it worse. He bought it, sold it, took a huge loss, and then Netflix exploded.
Yeah.
So.
And he's a professional as well, so it's not easy, this timing thing is very hard.
It is, and it is what it is. But also maybe Ackman had like in his mind a stop loss, and he just just followed a strategy. Like even though he thinks he's right, and you take a huge position, if it gets triggered, you take the loss.
Yeah.
Sometimes things don't work.
No, and you can't say that he is not successful in what he's doing. So No, but it's definitely, you know, I went through the whole universe that I showed you earlier with the groups and everything, and I've started to add this list here, which is just like adding stocks that are, you know, again back to the different phases in the chart.
Mhm.
At the bottom, I have just like stocks that are going straight up, you know, and then I have tried to categorize them. So if they start to move sideways a bit, I put them a little bit higher up in the list, and try to follow the base develop. And then when they seem to be a little bit more, you know, ready to break out, I put them even higher, and these will be candidates that I'm gonna watch. And I actually found a lot of them in the universe lists that I have here, opposite to finding stuff in my screens this week. So I think that's something I have to do more, just like screen through all the stocks that I have in the universe and keep adding them, and take the time to go through, like, you know, it's, if you do it every day, maybe you don't need to do it every day, but if you do it every week, you will quickly move through like thousand of charts.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of my screeners is to help me so I'm not going through too many things, just because there's just a lot out there and there's very few that already are kind of in the criteria I'm looking for. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll see where the base idea goes, and then I'll continue just to kind of keep playing breakouts as I see them. Maybe be a little conservative next week, just because I don't need to lose all my gains from the week before too quickly.
Yeah.
Like to hold on to those for a minute, but the other thing too is, if this stupid war gets any worse or anything like that, then you could see the markets all pull back on a macro. So it's something you got to watch for, and just assume. The one thing I like about the breakout strategy, no matter what, is especially because I'm typically looking towards highs. As the whole market pulls back in something serious, a lot of those aren't towards their highs anymore, which means I'm not going into them. So there's just a lot less to go into. So it kind of clarifies to me that this is a time to stop swing trading again. Which
Yeah.
in that case, I'm definitely, especially with how USEG has worked out for me, I'm going to use that strategy of, if we're in a market that breakouts are not working, I'll go right back to value investing and deep value, and just start going through names that are kind of,
For a
either
longer term
have
hold.
like solid earnings returns, stuff coming off their bottoms, that kind of thing. And then I'll flip flop as we get back to the top of the markets.
Yeah.
So, because so far that's been successful.
Yeah. And this one, I have to say though, it's a long time since I did research on Sportsman's Warehouse, but I remember I had them on a list and tracked them very closely with a value lens, deep value lens. And this is also another example of, if you actually took this in March, when the market, you can see the decline since January on Sportsman Warehouse. That would be another example, given that the fundamentals still look good on them, that you could probably be very successful at getting into this name as well. I
Well,
saw a lot of the value names start to show up in the screens in that time period. So we have done that style for quite some time, so it's pretty easy to just switch back to it.
yeah, and the other thing too is, I mean, with this one, if you look at that, if you zoom in on just that last section, since it bounced up, there was that strong day, it pulled back, and then it rose for a while. And if you had just put a line across there, when it actually finally breaks out, I mean, it's a pretty clear breakout. So it's kind of a mix of value. It's kind of a mix of our style now, but
Yeah.
in any of those areas, you could have taken the stock. So I don't know. There's just a bunch of different examples of ways you can make this work, and kind of knowing the trading side of things, I feel like really helps my value side of things, and and then just being intelligent with your risk reward ratios and making sure you have good stop losses, even if it's a value position. just having the stop loss. That's the simplest way to avoid doing anything, no matter where you get in on a stock, your stop loss is your stop loss.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've seen so many other things this week. There was heaps last week. I was at some point I was almost I bought a lot of things. Last month I bought a lot of tickers. Right now I'm just in 4 names. I got stopped out on a few. But I think also like maybe I've been buying a little bit too many tickers, so I have reflected a little bit on that, because I've been pretty happy with some of the winners I've had, but the gains are too small, so far. Don't get me wrong though, I have some decent gains as well, but it doesn't really matter too much if you get a 2% gain, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's still registered as a winner, I guess, but it's not showing up much in the portfolio. So I should narrow down the focus, I think, to more quality high. You know how Kulamagi rates his setups and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, to focus more on those things. But at the same time, when you see things are working, you just want to participate, right?
Yeah, it's hard not to. S&T is the one I got stopped out of on Friday, or yesterday, and of course has a great day. So there is names. It's just me not getting in and chasing things. Some of these names too that don't typically have a ton of volume. I like to get in on these ones because there's not as many people looking at this, but this is a clear one. I mean, this has already broken out once. And then, has been going sideways now for, 5-6 months.
Yeah.
It's a great example. And then, you start to watch it, starting to really show strength here on this last, month. So.
This is how he, I don't remember the author's name, but How I Made $2 Million in the Stock Market. Isn't that the title of the book?
Oh, yeah, by, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, I know. We have it in Discord, but this is what it talks with those boxes, right? It's in area, and then it breaks above it. This was a good example of one of these boxes. If you, and it goes for how many months did you say? 5?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah. So David Ryan also says that he loves these long bases because his experience is that the move high up then will be longer as well. So maybe you are still not too late on this one. I will add it to the list I had. What I struggle with sometimes on this with the lower volume is the spread between sell and buy. It's sometimes it's very far apart, so it doesn't take a lot of purchases before you can potentially get stopped out.
Right. Yeah. So I've been having my stop loss at 3%. So I'm thinking maybe I when I first was doing it last year, I had it at 4, and I went back between 4 and 5, and the thing is you're trying to find that right balance between not getting stopped out of stuff, but also you don't want to take too big of a loss every time you go in. So obviously your hit rate goes up higher the bigger your stop loss, but with each loss you're down more. So I might go back to at least the 4%. That's the kind of thing. I'm just playing with these things a little bit, trying to figure out what seems to give you the highest hit rate, which because some of these names are tough, no matter what. We can zoom in on these daily charts, but like when you go into the intraday chart too, some of these names, they go up 5-6%, down 5-6% in a day,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
So
Happens all the time.
yeah, there's more nuance to it. So it's like one of those things too that I'm going to continue to work on, especially this last week. Because, like I said, this last week, if I was able to stay in some of the names that I picked, it would have been a strong week for me. And instead, I'm down, 2.5% because I got stopped out of everything. So
I will say this though, Dane. I've seen a lot of interviews on the Trader Lion channel, and I've also read a lot of books and people who are in this space, and O'Neill and David Ryan, and then they tend to operate with a bit of a bigger stop loss, like around 7-8%, I think. But when they talk about their average losses, it's around 3%. So I found that a bit interesting. Like sometimes they sell out before it hits the actual stop loss, and through a year it tends to be around 3% anyways, and even lower, 2.5%. But that also means that something that dips 7% and they have a stop loss on 8 can move up again and become a winner. So it's this is the art with this, I think.
right. Yeah, no, and when they say the average is around 3, my guess is what they're doing is they're starting with 7%, 8%, like that. And then, we talk about moving our stop loss up. I assume if they're up, so much, then they move it to 3%, So
Yeah,
it allows you to get in on some of these names, and then also quickly limit what your stop loss is, but not just get kicked out in that initial, volatility that occurs. Because obviously when a stock's about to move, there's a lot of buying and selling being done. And there's like those last few people who are just trying to get at like a squeeze out, that are getting picked off. So, and I'm sure there's computer and algorithms out there that are, trying to steal money during that period, because it's probably a super easy time to play around with the bid and ask. So it's just all things like that you have to take into consideration that you're trying to overcome. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll start with like a higher one, like 5, and then just be a little bit more careful to move it up,
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'll keep playing around with it.
Yeah, and you maybe you also don't need to have like hard rules, like adapt to the individual stock and the chart, and see, okay, here I will give it some more room to breathe, and when it's tighter, maybe a slower mover, you just have a very tight one, maybe.
Yeah,
and a
no,
bigger position size.
I think you're right. I think depending on what the ADR is of a stock, and I use Bollinger Bands a lot, which kind of just give me statistically the idea of like what most likely it could go down to. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Keep spitballing ideas. That's honestly, because like I said, I'm going to try working off getting out of the bases, but no matter what, I still see the swing trade strategy as like the superior way of getting in and being consistent with getting gains. And I've done it, so it's like I don't want to veer too far from anything. But
No. How is Tesla done now lately? It's back up a little bit.
looks like it's kind of forming a base.
Yeah, like this is maybe a good example. If I draw the line here now at 367, that's not from the top that it had in 17th of December, but it's the majority of the base is going to be below this line. So if it breaks 367, maybe this is one of those that you can get in a little bit earlier on.
Right.
But again, not the typical name that we usually swing trade, right? Because the market cap is gigantic. But then again, Tesla can move.
Right.
And there was some news now with some of those robo taxis, right? I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, once I start getting in robo taxis, I'm gonna really have to start talking highly of the robots. I'm not trying to get screwed over in that.
We cannot take one of those ever.
I mean, I just, obviously, I just have to keep saying how much I love the robots.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it's kind of where I'm at right now. Is
Yeah, I
if we
think
pull up USEG's obviously continued to kind of pull back. Now, my goal is I'm praying this drops all the way back down to
120.
Yeah, 130 even, because it had pushed into the 130 range, pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I don't think I like that line you drew on that chart.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't think it's going to get back down to 120. Maybe it will. I just think now that there's so many people that are probably still bag holding in that name, but I don't know. Maybe they'll all sell out, because I'm sure there was a bunch of bag holders. But I'm also wondering too. I mean, if you look at the past time this popped, if you just zoom out a little bit, it looks almost identical in terms of like an initial pop and then it pulled back down. And I'm wondering if we'll get one more day that's a spike before everybody starts to really sell out and we get that kind of fall back down.
Yeah.
Doesn't it look like a mini version of the first one?
Yeah, it does. And actually, like, it had same type. It wasn't the same news, but it was like same type of news. That one here in January was Trump, with the drill, baby drill
on American oil. So
and now it was the war. I guess the difference, my candle, at least on the volume side, says that it was a selling day when you sold out of it, and back then it was just like people wanted to get in.
Yeah, but even though it was a selling day on this day, I think that's more just because of the news. It's like a short-lived thing. Like everyone's like, "Oh, we're going to war," but then everyone's like, then Trump and all them were like, "No, we're not starting a war here."
Yeah. So I guess
Which, who
that's
knows
the
what's going
difference
on,
here now. But in terms of how it looks like, it looks very similar. How many days
Right.
was that then? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, trading days after. And we are at 4 now.
So you heard it here next Friday, big pop.
I would put my glasses on that Friday. I mean, you see what happens.
Maybe on Friday, just for shits and giggles, I'll take a position on it. Just something small, like 5%, and I'll just put a stop loss on, and who knows? We'll see if it can match the exact same thing. If it does, it'll be one of the dumbest trades that I've had work for me.
Yeah. But back
But
then,
yeah, no, I would just like this to pull back, because once again, I mean, it was awesome to get a free pop. It was a huge return for essentially, in my mind, no reason. But yeah, I want to get back down into the 130s if I can, and I'll reopen my position for the long term, because I still think this is going to get to 350 at some point based on the switch to helium, which it just goes to show you, like, so many people are so bullish on this. I'm like, this company's literally moving away from oil and gas. But, it's just one of those names that people know is an oil and gas company in the States. And don't get me wrong, they would obviously have a huge benefit if, the price of oil skyrocketed. But
yeah. And
it's kind of hard to predict off that.
That is very true. In January here, when we were first in it and it broke down again, it bounced off the 20-day moving average. So maybe that's a line you can have as a reference this time.
Yeah, I mean, 20 is always a pretty strong indicator line, I find.
Yeah. Yeah, but good. That was very good.
Yeah, twice now. USEG has been just a huge killer for my. This is definitely my my best stock.
Yeah, which is a bit weird when you look at the chart, because it's a bit crazy, this chart.
And you actually, I kind of forget about this, but the first thing that turned me on to USEG before that day where you and I made the huge return, one of these other days I bought on the 5-day moving average and got one of those first pops before it actually took off. So
Okay.
this is actually the third time that USEG has worked out extremely well for me.
Yeah. Nice.
So
Opposite to UAME. That's a complete
that's
opposite.
you know, some you win, some you lose, and
Yeah.
UAME is a loser for me
This
every
is what
time.
I'm saying though. It's a bit funny because this chart is a bit more clean, you know. It has like a clear base forming and a clear breakout, but I have also been stopped out of this every time I try it.
Yeah, I just it is what it is. So you know.
Yeah. I saw oh yeah, UMAC was up, but I don't like this chart so much. It needs more time at least. And I think I saw some of the China names were. What do you feel about the China stocks right now, Dane?
To be honest, I haven't really seen much on I just haven't seen much moving. So like they haven't really been on my screeners all that much. There's always like one random one that they're like pumping
Yeah.
and dumping.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't really been into too many things. Like Value had mentioned Tiger, that's always one that
Yeah,
I
I
watch.
remember.
I don't really watch any of like the big ones like Alibaba or anything like that. But there is times where the Chinese names can take off. But I don't know. I think China's market right now seems kind of weak. I just think
Yeah.
ever since the government really stepped in and kind of put the hammer down on the public companies, there's just like a negative sentiment in the air. And then on top of that too, just the fact that they're kind of they're allies with all the countries that the rest of the world isn't allies with. Like it just puts you at a bit of a dichotomy to really like take it. And don't get me wrong, if there's a breakout that happens in a Chinese company, that's not like a turn off to me. Do I ever look at them as a value perspective? Not really, because there's just a lot of risk there. But in terms of just catching a breakout, I'm all about it. But I haven't really been looking at them, to be honest.
No.
And that's
No, I
more,
just
like I said, because of the fact that I just haven't seen them popping up on my screens.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw them on when I did go through my list, and I think maybe where was it? QFin.
Got too many tickers these days.
Yeah, I know. I don't even find it again now. There it is. Yeah, QFin maybe looks a bit. It needs more time, and 5 billion in market cap finance sector. And then Tiger also. Is that a trading platform?
I'm not 100% sure. I know it has to do with finance, but
Yeah,
I think it's like a
fintech.
mix of different things that they do.
Yeah. Just slowly moving upwards, a bit up and down. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen though, even though the charts doesn't necessarily look great in terms of swing trading, a lot of the the housing stocks are moving up a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't specifically noticed, but
Like the real estate companies.
yeah, I mean, I think there's some. I don't know. We're waiting at least in the States, for rates to come down. But I think the supplies is starting to slowly increase. I think there's the buyers are like there's a lot of people here who aren't looking to buy as much anymore because it's just gotten tough. Like people are kind of more staying where they're at. So I think those that are still willing to sell, I think that's slowly increasing. So it's starting to kind of slow the markets down here. So you might start to see some of the prices come down. So maybe it'll be more bullish for the whole sector going forward.
Yeah. QMCO doesn't look good anymore. Just seems to be completely breaking down here.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I guess you could argue maybe we're in some kind of base here, but who knows where that ends up coming back
Yeah.
up.
I think it has earnings on Monday, and let's see then. This.
Obviously, if earnings are Monday, that doesn't look very like the market's attitude's very positive about it.
No,
The fact
no,
that
I
it just
agree.
keeps dropping like that, especially on Friday, it looks like that final sell-off is kind of ugly. So,
Yeah.
um,
I have to say though, I know you talked about QUBT, and last time you went into that one, and I went into QBTS, and I got stopped out on it. It didn't move the way I wanted, but now it's holding. It's holding the base. I'm watching this one still because this is the, it's almost double size of QUBT, and it outperformed on the last earnings, which I don't think the other companies has done well. QBT had an earnings surprise as well, so because they don't have so much earnings yet, these companies, right?
right.
It's a bit early for them, but if you look at the volume, also I think QBTS looks a bit more promising in terms of um, all the volume it got in on that bounce up, and if it moves sideways here for a bit, I think I'm gonna keep an eye on this one. Along with QBT, of course, but I still like QBTS. I just need to time it. And I
Yeah,
saw
I remember when you and I both went out. I just thought it looked to me like QUBT
yeah,
was breaking out a little bit, which looked good.
yeah, I agree. The actual setup looked a bit better there. My thinking was that I remember I was too late into that one, and I was thinking that QBTS will then move along with it. But then that didn't really. It did happen to a degree, but not to the degree that I hoped for.
Yeah. But either way, I think it looks like it's hopefully forming a base right here, and I like those
Yeah,
rising moving averages. So I'm hope they can ride that, and I can take advantage of it.
yeah,
It depends though, because the quantum, like you said, the whole quantum sector moves kind of as a whole. So
yeah.
if it tends to be a little bullish right here, maybe we can see it go. I've also seen its name come up a few times on my screeners. So
Same
it's
here.
I've noticed too that when I start to see a name come up, but it doesn't stay on the list, it's one to start to watch because usually it starts to mean that supply's drying up and that it could have a breakout.
Yeah,
So just another thing I kind of pay attention to. Um,
and they
I'm
had
just like
some.
scrolling through my lists. There's so many names that have just run so high that like I should have just gotten a position and stayed in it. I just pulled up GNE. That's another one I took and sold out of.
Oh yeah,
It hasn't. I don't think it's broken. It's not even. It still doesn't even come close to the 10-day moving average.
no, that looks, and look at the volume again on this. Like, okay, the average is a little bit smaller here, but still, you know, these are still big buyers.
Yeah, I took this.
Yeah, where would you take this though? Here on Tuesday, 27th of May.
No, I think I took it the day before.
Okay,
Um,
because it's not so apparent where you take this one.
well, I mean, on some of these rising ones, these are the ones that if you can get in and you can stay in, like this is where you just set that stop loss at the 10-day moving average and let it follow.
Yeah,
But I mean, you're talking about where would you take it? I mean, if I let me just pull this up just so I can see a true line. I mean, really, the line that I draw for a real breakout is on May 14th. So
okay, yeah. and then it already had the prior day, and also 2 days ahead it had above average volume.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you zoom out a little bit more too, you can see like going back like, you know, over the past year, like that's the highest it's gotten to. So I'm just saying for a 1 year breakout.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I find if you look at the bigger picture, you'll find these a little bit easier. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
hard to see
so
when you look just at the rise.
this line here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you could see right there, that's where it's, you know, there's been definitely a form of resistance right there. So when it breaks through that, that's where it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Now, how high did this get before? Now that you zoom out, I didn't even go back 2 years.
31.13. If you look at the weekly, imagine if we will just smash above that one. then we are
Yeah, that'd be
talking.
wild.
Yeah.
But that's my point. You know, it's like one of those things that you know, if you zoom out a little bit, it gives you a little bit better of a picture. That, you know, you should be zooming in and out of these things. You shouldn't just be doing it one way or the other. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like FTEK possibly broke out on Friday.
Yeah, I added them back to my watch list. A bit choppy, that one.
Yeah, they are. And yeah, you're gonna get stopped out on some of those, but they also can lead to huge returns.
Yeah. And that move came a few days after the last earnings, but the earnings wasn't outperforming, so maybe there was some guidance news or something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's just like connected to some bigger, you know, things going on in the world. But that got a good amount of volume on 19th of May.
Right.
It just seems to just keep going. And another one that follows the 10-day moving average, pretty consistent, you know.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, so, you know, I'm just scrolling through right now looking at stuff towards its 52-week high, and there is a lot of stuff still breaking out. OST is that same chart where it just won't break through the 10-day moving average.
Yeah.
And OUST is another one. I don't know why O seems to be a solid letter. So like I said, these are the names that Qualamaji, if you had gotten in on, I mean, you'd be getting really strong returns. Not only on the initial breakout wherever you were able to get in, but also just holding it. P6 Power Solutions, that even though it just continues to creep up.
I have this on the other list that I talked about, like, because you know, will you say that this is right now in a phase 2 stage?
Oh yeah.
Or a stage 2?
Yeah, I'd say stage 2. I mean, I wouldn't say it's shown any like sideways movement really. There's been like one, you know, there's like a day here and there where it kind of moves sideways, and obviously it took a little bit to break out from that last peak. But other than that, I mean, it just shows strength.
Yeah. So here's maybe another example. If you, I don't know if you can see my screen, Dane, but if you had drawn the line like here, where the majority of the sideways move is beneath the line, you know, and maybe you take it here on Friday, 16th of May, opposite to here, you know, Friday, 6th of June. That would be another good example of what we spoke about earlier, which gives you almost 72% a move, you know, opposite to 34.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's a little bit longer of a hold, but it's a pretty solid return.
Yeah, and you do see this, like it is breaking out above that line on volume, and then it never touches that line again. So you would be in this one, you know.
Yeah. Another one I got stopped out of on like the worst possible day was TMC. I got in on the What day was this? I got in late on June 16th, got stopped out on the 17th, and then the 18th was another 24% jump. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So literally, I mean, I'm just missing these things, but they are working. TSSI, that's another one I liked. I
No,
didn't get
that's
into it, but I definitely thought it looked good. I don't know why I didn't take it.
that's another example for me of one I sold early, because I was in this one. This was a nice gain for me. Worked straight away. But I sold, and
Yeah.
it had just moved very good off.
And then one last one that I just kind of popped up to me on Friday was YYGH. I didn't take it, but I think it looks pretty good right where it's at. It's not that old of a company, but
Oh yeah. And actually, I've seen a lot of these. I've seen some other swing traders. They love this kind of setup, where it's coming from a IPO and it drops.
Yeah.
It drops a lot, and then it starts to climb, and you see volume coming in again. They specialize in this type of setups. So yeah, this could be a good one.
So yeah, and it takes a little bit for a company to kind of find its feet, and
Yeah.
so it just, I don't know. I think there's still a decent amount of things going on, despite the fact that, like I said, I didn't have a great week. So
Yeah, no, I agree. But like I also said, like I think you and I both have seen that, which is made it more frustrating for me that it wasn't a good week.
yeah, because there was, I mean, like I said, I'm literally tiptoeing around names at the wrong time. So,
and I found myself also like, I made a mistake, got stopped out almost immediately, and I'm just like thinking to myself what an idiot and I am, and that I don't want it to affect the next trade, but it does, it does limit you a bit. You are a bit more hesitant maybe. So those things I'm pretty good at not letting them decide it too much, but my point is you can easily find yourself in just like a bad run of entries, and then I just turn off the computer.
yeah, sometimes after that's how Friday it was. I got stopped out on 3 things like right away.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
and the other names I were in got stopped out that same morning. So
Yeah.
I literally got stopped out of 6 things kind of all at once. And some of them were break even, so it wasn't a big deal. But it's just like, come on, like
Yeah, you're just like, it's not my day. I'm not gonna do this. I'm just
yeah,
gonna
and
do something else instead.
like I was in Mass, MASS, and the day before, nice gain. I looked like I had called like a pretty perfect breakout, and then literally pulls back right to where I had got in, and I got stopped out, and I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I remember last time I think we streamed, I talked about this stock, MPAA, and I decided to sell out ahead of earnings. Do you remember that?
Yes.
If you pull out MPAA, they had a good earnings report actually, but it it was up in the pre-market, but then it just tanked. So it just shows you again a confirmation, because I was first. I remember I texted you. It seems like that was the wrong decision because they seem strong in the pre-market. I didn't read the earnings report at that time, but then I saw just like quickly after the open, it started to drop. And I was very happy that I had made that decision, because I made a gain on this one.
Yeah, well, I think even though it's a strong, gain, and a lot of people are always confused on why that works, but we've said this a bunch of times, is like, these things, they run up for a while, people start to anticipate certain things, they start to price in certain things, and if that earnings report, even if it looks good, doesn't hit those numbers, some big player is out.
Yeah.
So either that or just someone's taking gains, like it's at where it's at, as high as they think it's going to get. They think it's fairly valued at that point, so they pull. And if you got someone with you know, 30,000, 40,000 shares sell all at once, like, you know, it puts some down pressure on a stock.
Yeah. So it's just like I think earnings. You should have a good caution to stay in an earnings report, I think, and maybe even trim the position ahead of it.
Right.
If you kind of feel like this is a good stock to be in, I want to continue. It can be very dangerous because you get you know, like we said at that time, also you get these big drops overnight, 60%.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is even just to kind of your point, like what you were saying about Minervinia. I know you're talking about a different thing, but you know, if you go into earnings and you end up like, let's say you even sold like most of your position before just in case, and it goes
Yeah.
up, you're gonna have that feeling like, well, at least you know, you know, at least I'm still in it, and then it's going up. But also, if it does collapse and it's down, you know, 20% a day, you know, you're going to have that feeling like, oh, wow, I nailed it. Like perfect, like
Yeah.
I perfect called it. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things just mentally to kind of help yourself make or seem like you're making the right choices.
Which is the opposite to what we just discussed with when you want to just turn off the computer because you're making mistakes. You know, you build your confidence, you build your zone and your you know, your attitude towards things, which can also be a bit dangerous, but that I think helps you move a bit quicker and more decisive when things starts to move. You have always experienced, you know, when you are in the zone. I think it's important also to make those decisions ahead of something and set yourself up so you're gonna look right either way how it goes. You know,
Right. Well,
to
and that's
trick
why I
your
said
mind
too,
a bit.
like, you know, I don't think I was doing necessarily anything wrong this last week. It just starts to make me go and like look at the strategy in terms of where's my stop loss, you know, what percent am I getting in on these names? Because if I work on that criteria, I'll be able to get in on some of these things. And also too, in terms of my selling rules, as of now, it looks like it makes pretty good sense to sell part of your position and then hold out for like either a 10-day moving average fail or something like that. Because there's just a lot of names that have just shown strength, you know, beyond the first few days of a breakout.
Yeah. Another one that we were both in was AMPX. That turned around so far, at least.
Yeah, but it does look like it's in a good spot. I mean, I want it
I
to.
was
I
just
think it's
gonna
going to
say, like,
consolidate here.
yeah,
But
and Friday when you see it drops down below the 10-day moving average, and but it comes back up. That's a strength, and it comes back up on volume as well. And keep in
right.
mind, like, this move started from 2 consistent good earnings reports, so I think this is still something that is worth watching. And maybe again, I don't know, where would you take it again now, Dane? 4,
I mean, you could
around
take it
4.
here, but I would say around like, you know, 420-ish. It looks like that's a pretty solid line of resistance there. So if it's
Yeah,
able to break past that,
yeah,
but you could get in here at the base somewhere. If you,
yeah,
I would wait on this one. I think it's going to take a little bit before it can
yeah.
show
I
enough strength
agree,
to push out.
but I'm keeping it on the watch list I have here.
Yeah, AMPX is a name I'll keep an eye on.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and a bit of an encouraging thing is, you know how in the beginning, like May, June, we saw that the market was up, but I couldn't find like really good setups. But now I see they come a lot more stocks in the screens with good setups. So you have a lot of alternatives right now. I think a lot of things like we have been discussing throughout this stream is like they seems to move sideways a bit now and starts to build bases, and maybe in the beginning of that phase to build some bases. So put them on a watch list and just track for the coming weeks and months. I think it's a smart move right now.
Yeah, I think it goes to show you that when there's a pullback in the market and then everything starts to recover, you know, it's kind of why, like, you know, everybody says that you want to wait. Everything should kind of break out once and then start to, do that cup and handle or some kind of sideways move, wedge, flag, whatever dumb shit you want to call it. And that's where you start to really, start to watch things, because that's where you can start to predict these things, and that's where you can start to really take advantage of the strategy.
Yeah.
I do got to get going, man. All right.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, I have a summer holiday now, so
Oh, there you go.
yeah, I think maybe it will be easier for me. I can't promise anything because of even if I have a holiday, my life is still busy at home. So,
Yeah,
but we were talking about maybe doing a later stream one weekend, which we are both very interested to try out, I think. But maybe the chances are a bit higher now that I can do a little bit later on a Saturday or Sunday, maybe. So we will just keep you guys updated, and I will. We will see, because I don't know. Maybe it's not worth it, but it's worth to try, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just so early Eastern time, and I know obviously, probably in Europe this isn't the worst time to do it, but it's still a little early even in Europe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
it
think if it
is.
was more towards night in Europe and more towards midday in the States,
Yeah,
you could
maybe.
possibly catch a little bit more.
Yeah, because what we want, like Value came into the chat today, like it would be cool to have some interactions with a little bit more with people in the chats, So then I think the quality of the conversation will also improve for us, because sometimes we go through the week and then we miss out on something that maybe we should have spoken about, that maybe someone in the chat have paid attention to, and stuff like that. It's just like easier with more people.
Yeah, well, and when I used to do the weeknight streams, which I wish I could get back to doing them. It's
Yeah,
just impossible now with kids.
yeah,
But uh, I used to get, there'd be like 10 people in the conversation, which was great. It was fun.
yeah,
But yeah, it's been a while. I mean, that's partly why we have the Discord going now, because then,
yeah,
during the week we can keep up on there, because,
yeah,
a week in between time is a lot of time in the market. It's a
yeah, it
lot happening.
is. Yeah, but
So,
yeah, let's see how it goes. And yeah, but you can stream next weekend, right?
I will be away,
Yeah.
but I might be able to bring my stuff and stream next weekend. So I
Okay.
will let everyone. I'll keep you updated, and
Yeah.
we'll put it in the Discord.
All right.
I'm also not that I don't have like summer break like you do, but I do have a bunch of vacations and trips planned. So
Yeah.
it's more depends on the day.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Enjoy the rest of the weekend then to everyone, and it was nice to be back. A lot of things happened these last 2 weeks, I think, and yeah, Dane, you especially outperform in these 2 last weeks. So it's good to see, the progress and that the strategy works. Because it has been a big effort to change over to swing trading, because everything is so busy and you need to educate yourself and understand things and stuff like that. So yeah, it's
Well,
good
and
to
this
see
is
stuff work.
Yeah, and this is similar to what I saw in the first few months that I started doing it. Is you just get lucky once in a while, and like you'll have like a 10% week where like just a bunch of stuff works. You get into the names at the right times, and then I would make stupid mistakes in terms of like not really being strict with my stop loss and going into too many names and stuff like that, and I would lose a chunk of it. And that's why I said last year I could have easily hit. I think if I did the math based on, keeping a tighter stop loss and stuff, and I could have easily gotten, what do you call it? Almost like a 50% return just in those 6 months.
Yeah.
So if I can keep that up now, every 10% compounds upon itself too, because, I'm
Yeah.
putting bigger chunks in each time.
Yeah.
So it all scales up. So, you just have to take it for what it is. The strategy works at times, and when it does, it can kill it, especially if you're taking larger position sizes. When I'm taking 10% position sizes, if I have 3 or 4 names work out in a week and they're all up, 20, 30%, it's a huge week for me.
Yeah.
Sure. And then you have the weeks like this where even though I'm down 2.5%, it's just part of it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter when you start to compound those gains, and it's like, okay, it sucks, but like you said, you just have to be happy with the results so far.
Yeah, and at the same time too, I'm up over 20%, and the S&P's up too. So this
Yeah,
has not been a strong year.
yeah,
So that's another thing to focus on is even in bad years, this strategy works pretty well if you're patient. You
yeah,
know, luckily I had the intelligence to really slow down when things start. Luckily, I
yeah,
had read enough to say that even though swing trading works, like in the wrong market, don't do it because you'll
yeah.
just get
Just
eaten alive.
move
So
away. I think that's it. You or start to short things. We have spoken about that, right? But in terms of breakouts and stuff, just move away. It's so easy to lose and start to chase also.
right.
Which I think, and the feeling of being in cash in those times were pretty great, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Watching things go down and I'm not involved.
yeah, yeah.
Not a bad feeling.
Meanwhile, Dane, there's some fund manager sitting around having a triple or even more salaries than we do, and he's up 1% for the year.
I'm not going to worry about that. I can't, I can't. I could have went into finance, and at the time when I was going to school, I didn't even really know what finance was, to be honest. I had no one in my life was involved in the stock market. So,
Yeah, but but don't worry, because neither do they. It seems like at times.
right. But it's all sometimes it's best to learn things on your own anyways. If I
Yeah,
had went to school and had the background of that, I could have melded my brain differently than what I've gotten now doing my
yeah.
own research. So
Very. You get into a track where everyone learns the same stuff, and it's harder to break out and maybe get inputs from other sources that maybe say the complete opposite to what you learn from your professor or whatever.
right.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right,
All
everybody.
right.
Enjoy the
See
rest of
ya.
your weekend.
Enjoy.
Hopefully you have a strong week.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm gonna wear the glasses, but let's see. Let's see.
Yes, let's get the glasses on.
No, I don't feel it, Dane. I don't feel it this time. I'm sorry.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Maybe I will update with a picture in the Discord if I start to feel it. But last time, I mean, did you see what happened on Monday? There was an escalation in the war. I'm gonna be very careful.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
If USEG pops, maybe I'll just hop back in.
Yeah. All right.
Remember next Friday. Next Friday.
Next Friday is the date for that. Okay.
This is not financial advice.
No, never on this channel.
Yep, these are just us doing stupid things.
Yeah.
All right,
Bye
everybody.
bye.
Bye.